The sky over Kaelor Prime burned red. Smoke rose from cracked ground like black fingers reaching for the stars. The Galactic Concorde's last strong point sat in a wide valley between two broken mountains. Trenches cut deep into the dirt. Soldiers from many worlds waited inside them. They held rifles with shaking hands. Their eyes looked tired. Lieutenant Brian Hayes crouched low behind a wall of sandbags. He belonged to the Lyrath species. His body had hard shell plates and long feelers that moved when he thought hard. Right now his feelers stayed still. He listened to the low hum of Vexar drones high above. The swarm never stopped coming. Day after day, night after night, more of them poured down from the sky. They looked like giant insects made of wet black metal and bone. They screamed when they died, but more always took their place. Brian checked his energy rifle. The power cell showed half full. Not enough. Never enough. He turned to the soldier next to him. Corporal Maria Lopez came from one of the few mammalian worlds still in the Concorde. Her fur was short and gray. Dirt covered her face. She cleaned her sidearm with slow, careful moves. "You think we'll see morning?" Maria asked. Her voice sounded flat. Brian clicked his mandibles. "We always see morning, until we don't." A soft laugh came from further down the trench. Private Kevin Ruiz leaned against the wall. He was human-looking enough to pass for one of the old stories, but he was born on a Concorde world far from Earth. His dark hair stuck out under his helmet. He held a ration bar in one hand. "Old ghost stories again?" Kevin said. "You two love those tales." Maria looked at him. "They keep us going. Better than thinking about the swarm eating our bones." Brian nodded slowly. Everyone in the trench knew the stories. Parents told them to young ones across 100 worlds. Long ago, before the Concorde grew strong, a race called humans walked the stars. They built ships that could break worlds. They fought wars that lasted centuries. Then one day, they vanished. No graves, no ruins, just silence. Some said they died out. Others said they hid. But the oldest tales called them ghosts, angry spirits that came back when the galaxy needed punishment. They did not tire. They did not fear. They left battlefields empty and quiet. No one had seen a real human in thousands of years. The stories felt safe that way. Ghosts stayed in the dark. They did not stand next to you in a trench while the enemy closed in. A sharp whistle cut through the air. Incoming. Everyone dropped low. The ground shook as Vexar drop pods slammed into the valley floor. Black shapes burst out and charged. Claws scraped rock. Acid spit hissed on metal shields. "Open fire!" Brian shouted. Rifles cracked. Blue energy bolts lit the night. Vexar bodies fell, but more rushed forward. One soldier near the end of the line screamed as claws tore through his armor. Maria leaned out and shot 3 times. Each hit found a soft spot. The creature dropped. "We can't hold this line much longer," she said between shots. Brian knew she was right. Supplies ran low. Medbays overflowed. Command promised reinforcements, but the messages grew shorter each day. The fleet was too far. The swarm moved too fast. Then something changed. A new sound rose above the battle. A deep, steady roar. Not Vexar, not Concorde engines, something bigger. The sky lit up with white streaks. Ships dropped out of warp, so close that the air burned. They looked sharp and heavy. Gray hulls with red stripes. No Concorde symbols, no Lyrath markings, nothing familiar. The lead ship turned its bow toward the swarm. Turrets spun. Beams of bright white light cut through the black mass. The roar grew louder as smaller craft launched from the big ships. They fell like arrows, straight into the fight. Brian stared. His feelers twitched fast. What What is that? Maria lowered her rifle a little. I don't know, but they're hitting the swarm hard. A voice came over every open comm channel. It spoke in clear Concord standard, calm and strong. This is the Human Expeditionary Force. We are engaging hostiles. Hold your positions. Help has arrived. The word human hung in the air like smoke. Kevin stood up slowly. His eyes went wide. Humans? Real humans? Down the trench, soldiers whispered. Some laughed in shock. Others gripped their weapons tighter. Brian felt his shell plates tighten. The old stories rushed back into his mind. Ghosts, undying ones, the ones who left only silence. A drop pod landed 50 meters away. The door blew open. Figures stepped out. They wore heavy gray armor, helmets with clear visors, rifles bigger than anything the Concorde used. They moved fast. One raised a weapon and fired. A line of bright rounds tore through a Vexar pack. The creatures exploded into wet pieces. Another human charged straight at a Biotitan twice his size. The monster swung a claw. The human rolled under it, planted a charge on the creature's leg, and ran. The blast took the leg off. The Titan fell. The human did not stop. He turned and shot the thing in the head until it stopped moving. Brian watched the whole thing. His heart beat hard against his shell. These were not myths. They bled red when hit. They shouted when angry. But they kept moving. A human took 3 acid burns to the chest. He dropped to one knee. Then he stood again. He slapped a patch on the wound and kept shooting. Maria grabbed Brian's arm. They're real. The ghosts are real. More humans landed. They formed lines. They pushed forward. Every step they took, the swarm fell back. For the first time in months, the valley grew quiet in places. The enemy hesitated. Brian keyed his comm. Command, this is Lieutenant Hayes. Unknown Allied force on the field. They call themselves human. They're breaking the swarm advance. Static answered first. Then a voice, shaky. Confirm that, Lieutenant? Humans? Confirmed, Brian said. And they're fighting like the story said. He looked up at the sky. More ships arrived. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Their engines lit the clouds red and gold. The humans did not wait for orders. They moved like they knew exactly what to do, like they had fought this war before. Kevin laughed again, but this time it sounded different. Not nervous, excited. They came back. After all this time, they came back. Brian did not answer. He watched a human medic drag a wounded Concorde soldier to cover. The medic worked fast. He spoke soft words Brian could not hear. Then he turned and ran back into the fight. The old ghost stories had always ended the same way. The humans appeared, they fought, they won, and then they disappeared again. No one knew why. No one knew where. But tonight, the ghosts did not vanish. They stayed. They reloaded. They helped the wounded. They looked at the stars like they belonged there. Brian lifted his rifle. For the first time in weeks, hope felt real, small, sharp, dangerous. He stepped out of the trench. The humans were here, and the swarm would learn what the old stories really meant. To them, humans were old ghost stories, until we appeared on the front lines. The valley floor still smoked from the last Vexar wave. Broken black shells lay everywhere. Some still twitched. The air smelled of burned metal and acid. Lieutenant Brian Hayes stood at the edge of the trench line. His feelers moved slowly as he watched the newcomers. Humans. They moved like they owned the ground. Their gray armor looked thick but light. Helmets covered their faces, but the visors showed eyes that scanned everything. One squad advanced past the Concorde position without slowing. They checked corners, lifted wounded, and kept going forward. No fear, no pause. Corporal Maria Lopez stood next to Brian. Her gray fur was matted with dirt and blood. She pointed with her rifle barrel. Look at that one, the woman in front. A human female led the squad. Her name tag read Corporal Laura Bennett. She carried a heavy rifle across her chest. Her steps were quick and sure. She raised one hand to signal a stop. Her team dropped to one knee in perfect line. Then she pointed ahead. A group of Vexar scouts crawled over a ridge 50 meters away. Laura did not shout. She just aimed and fired. 3 quick bursts. Each shot hit clean. The scouts dropped. Her squad opened up next. The ridge became quiet again. Brian felt his mandibles click. They don't waste shots. Maria nodded. And they don't run when things get bad. Further down the line, a human drop pod hissed open. Soldiers poured out. One of them was Sergeant Daniel Cole. Tall, broad shoulders, short brown hair under his helmet. He carried a big pack on his back. Inside were tools and extra ammo. He waved his team forward. "Move! Secure that bunker," Daniel called. His voice cut through the noise like a knife. The bunker was a Concord outpost, half collapsed. Vexar had torn the door off. Inside, 3 Larath soldiers hid behind crates. They were hurt. One could not stand. Daniel reached them first. He knelt. "Easy. We're here to help." The wounded Larath looked up. His shell was cracked. Blood leaked from a deep cut. You're human?" Daniel gave a small smile. "Yeah. Sorry we're late." He pulled out a med kit. White patches. Tubes of gel. He worked fast. Cleaned the wound. Sealed it. The Larath hissed in pain, but stayed still. When Daniel finished, the soldier could sit up. "Why did you come?" the Larath asked. Daniel shrugged. "Old friends called for help. We answered." He stood and turned to his team. "Get these 3 to the medevac point. Then we push up the ridge." The humans did not wait for thanks. They moved on. Brian watched all of this from his position. His squad gathered around him. Private Kevin Ruiz wiped sweat from his face. "They're not like us. We dig in. They charge." Another soldier, a tall avian named Corporal Alex Rivera, clicked his beak. "The story said they never stop. Looks true." A low rumble came from the sky. More human ships arrived. The big cruiser Endurance hung low. Its guns stayed hot. Every few minutes, bright beams lanced down and burned Vexar clusters to ash. On the ground, Laura Bennett's squad reached a forward observation post. It was a wrecked tower. Vexar swarmed the base. Dozens of them. Claws scraped metal. Acid ate through supports. Laura stopped her team. "Grenades first, then we go in." Private Kevin Ruiz. No, wait. This was a different Kevin. One of the humans. Wait, no. In Laura's squad, the rifleman was Private Ryan Patel. He pulled 2 grenades from his belt. "On your mark." Laura counted. 3, 2, 1. The grenades flew. Bright flashes. Screams. Half the swarm fell apart. The rest charged. Laura led the way. Fired from the hip. Ryan and the others followed. They fought close. Too close. One Vexar lunged at Laura. Its claw caught her shoulder. Armor cracked. Blood showed. She did not scream. She drove her rifle butt into its face, then shot it point blank. The creature dropped. Ryan saw the wound. "Corp, you're hit." Laura pressed a hand to the cut. "It's shallow. Keep moving." She slapped a patch on it herself. White foam sealed the hole. Then she ran forward again. Brian saw the whole fight from a distance. His feelers stood straight up. She got hit bad, and she just kept going. Maria lowered her binoculars. Like the old tales, they patch up and fight on. The humans cleared the tower in minutes. They set up a heavy gun on top. It started firing into the swarm. Long bursts of solid rounds. Each hit tore chunks out of the enemy. Down in the valley, Daniel Cole's team linked up with a Concord platoon. The platoon leader was Captain Elena Vargas. She was mammalian too. Short black hair, tired eyes. She met Daniel at the trench line. "You're the humans," she said. Daniel nodded. "Sergeant Cole, what's the situation?" Elena pointed to a map on her wrist screen. "The swarm is massing on the east ridge. Bio-Titans incoming. We can't hold without support. Daniel looked at the map. How many Titans? 3 confirmed, maybe more. Daniel smiled a little. Good, we like big targets. He turned to his radio. Endurance, this is Cole. Request precision strike on East Ridge coordinates. 3 big ones, we'll mark them. A voice answered from the ship. Calm. Copy that, Sergeant. Strike inbound. 30 seconds. Daniel looked at Elena. Get your people low. This is going to be loud. Elena stared. You can call strikes that fast? Daniel shrugged. We practice. 30 seconds later, the sky lit up. A single beam from the Endurance hit the ridge. White fire. The ground shook. When the light faded, the ridge was gone. Smoke rose in a tall column. No more Titans. Elena's mouth opened. No words came out. Daniel clapped her on the shoulder. Told you. Brian walked over to them. He had to see this close. Daniel turned. Lieutenant Hayes? Brian nodded. You know my name? Comms are open. We listen. Daniel extended a hand. Sergeant Daniel Cole. Good to meet you. Brian took the hand carefully. Human skin felt warm. Strange. You fight differently. Daniel laughed softly. We fight to win. That's all. More humans arrived. They brought crates, food, ammo, medical supplies. They shared without asking. One human medic treated a wounded Lirath right there in the open. The Lirath watched in silence as the human worked. Laura Bennett joined them. Her shoulder was bandaged. She looked tired but steady. We cleared the east approach. Swarm is pulling back for now. Brian looked at her. You were wounded. Laura touched the patch. Happens. We fix it and keep going. Maria stepped closer. The stories say humans don't die easy. Laura met her eyes. We die. Just not today. The group stood quiet for a moment. The valley felt different. The screams of the swarm were farther away. Human voices carried across the lines. Orders, jokes. Someone sang a short song. Brian felt something he had not felt in months. A spark. Small, but real. Daniel looked up at the stars. We were gone a long time. Heard the galaxy was in trouble. Figured it was time to come back. Elena asked the question everyone wanted to hear. Why now? Daniel answered simple. Because you needed us, and we never forgot how to fight. Brian looked around. Humans moved among the Concord soldiers. They helped carry stretchers. They fixed broken guns. They stood watch together. The old ghost stories had always scared people. Ghosts that came in the night. Ghosts that left nothing behind. But these ghosts stayed. They bled. They laughed. They fought side by side. And for the first time, the swarm looked small. Brian lifted his rifle. Then let's make sure they remember why the stories warned about you. Daniel grinned. Copy that, Lieutenant. They stepped forward together. The front line waited, and the humans were no longer shadows and tails. To them, humans were old ghost stories, until we appeared on the front lines. Weeks passed on Kalor Prime. The front line no longer moved backward every day. It held. Sometimes it pushed forward a little. The Vexar still came in waves, but smaller ones now. They tested, they watched, they learned fear. Human camps grew along the ridge they had taken. Simple tents, metal crates stacked for walls. Lights ran on cables from the Endurance. At night the camps glowed soft yellow against the dark. Soldiers from both sides sat around small fires. They shared food. They talked. Lieutenant Brian Hayes sat on a low crate one evening. His shell felt heavy from long days. Across from him, Corporal Laura Bennett cleaned her rifle. She moved slow and careful. Her shoulder wound had healed to a thin scar. She no longer winced when she lifted her arm. You do this every night? Brian asked. Laura nodded. Habit. Keeps it ready. keeps my mind quiet. Sergeant Daniel Cole walked up with 3 cups of hot drink, something humans called coffee. It smelled sharp. He handed one to each. "Try it," Daniel said. "Wakes you up better than stim shots." Brian took a small sip. Bitter, hot, strange, but good after cold nights. Major Amanda Foster joined them. She carried a data pad. She sat without a word at first. Then she spoke. "Command wants a full report. They ask why the swarm slowed. They want to know if humans changed everything." Amanda looked at Brian. "What do I tell them?" Brian clicked his mandibles slow. "Tell them the truth. Humans fight like nothing we know. But more than that, they stay, they help, they make us believe we can win." Laura looked up from her rifle. "We didn't come to be heroes. We came because the old signals woke up. Distress calls from 100 worlds, automated, ancient. They reached our quiet systems. We listened." Daniel leaned forward. "Our elders kept records. When the big war ended long ago, we broke apart. Worlds burned, fleets scattered. We hid in deep space, rebuilt slow, no contact, no wars, just survival." Brian listened close. "And now?" Daniel met his eyes. "Now the galaxy calls again. Honor says we answer. So here we are." A soft wind moved through the camp. Stars showed bright above the smoke. Laura set her rifle down. "Some of our people still tell ghost stories too, about the old humans, the ones who fought until nothing was left. They say we became myths to scare ourselves, to remember what we lost." Amanda spoke quiet. "You don't seem lost." Daniel smiled small. "We found our way back." The next day brought trouble. Scouts reported movement far east. Not scouts this time. A full counterpush, the biggest yet. Vexar hive minds had linked. They gathered everything left. Biotitans, swarms of flyers. Ground troops in thick packs. They aimed straight for the human beachhead, the place where the first ships landed. Captain Stephen Grant stood on the Endurance Bridge again. Screens showed the enemy mass. Red everywhere. "Numbers?" Stephen asked. "Over 10,000 ground forms. 50 Titans. Flyers too many to count," an officer said. Stephen stared at the map. "They want to end us here." He keyed the comm. "All ground commanders, this is Grant. Swarm is coming hard. Beachhead is the target. We hold or we lose the foothold. Endurance will give everything we have. Fight smart. Fight together." On the ground, Amanda gathered her officers. Brian stood with them. Laura and Daniel too. "Plan is simple," Amanda said. "We don't let them reach the landing zone. We meet them in the open valley. Hit hard. Slow them. Buy time for orbital support." Brian looked at the map. "The valley is wide. They will spread out. That's why we use the ridge as anchor. Humans take the center. Conquered flanks. We pinch them." Daniel checked his launcher. "We can do that." Laura added, "And when they close, we go loud." The swarm arrived at dusk. The ground shook from thousands of feet. Black shapes filled the horizon. Flyers screamed overhead. Titans roared. Humans formed the center line. Exosuits marched forward. Heavy rifles ready. Conquered units spread left and right. Lyrath shells shone in the fading light. Avian wings folded tight. Brian stood with his squad near Amanda. He felt the old fear rise. Then he saw Laura check her patch one last time. Daniel load a fresh missile. Stephen's voice came calm over comms. "Hold steady, we have you." The first wave hit. Vexar flyers dove. Humans answered with auto-turrets. Bright tracers filled the sky. Flyers fell like rain. Ground troops charged. Acid spitting. Laura shouted, "Grenades!" Explosions ripped the front ranks. Humans pushed into the gaps. Close fighting. Brutal. A human soldier took a claw to the leg. He fell, stood again, fired until his clip emptied. Daniel moved like a storm. He launched missiles into Titan legs, one after another. Titan stumbled, fell. Brian fought beside him. His energy rifle hummed hot. He shot a Vexar off Daniel's back. Daniel nodded thanks. No words needed. The swarm pressed harder. Numbers told. Humans gave ground slow, step by step. Wounded piled up. Medics worked in the open. Patches, gel, quick surgery. Amanda called for support. Endurance, we need beams now. Stephen answered, locked, firing. White light came down. Long lines of fire. The swarm center burned. Gaps opened. But the enemy adapted. They sent elite forms, fast, armored, claws like blades. One reached Laura. It slashed. She blocked with her rifle. The stock broke. She drew a knife, fought hand to hand, cut deep. The thing fell. She stood breathing hard. Blood on her face. Not all hers. Brian reached her. You good? Laura nodded. Keep going. The battle stretched into night. Stars watched cold. The valley became a mess of bodies and fire. Then the turning point came. More human ships dropped from orbit. Not just the Endurance Group. A full reinforcement fleet. Dozens of cruisers. Thousands more troops. They landed fast. Fresh soldiers poured out. They joined the line without pause. Daniel saw them first. Reinforcements. Cheers rose. Weak at first, then strong. The swarm felt the change. Hive minds flickered. Doubt spread. Humans charged now, not to hold, to break. Laura led her squad forward. Daniel beside her. Brian with them. Amanda directed from the rear. They pushed deep into swarm territory, past broken Titans, past dead flyers, into the heart. Orbital strikes followed, precise, deadly. The swarm line cracked, then shattered. Vexar turned, ran. For the first time they fled. The valley grew quiet. Only fires crackled. Wounded groaned. Medics called names. Brian stood on a small rise. He looked at the humans around him. Tired, dirty, alive. Laura sat on the ground. She laughed soft. We did it. Daniel clapped Brian on the shell. Told you, we don't quit. Amanda walked up. The beachhead holds. The front is ours. Stephen's voice came over comms. Final words for the night. Good work, everyone. Rest now. Tomorrow we rebuild. Brian looked to the stars. Human ships patrolled high, lights steady. The old ghost stories had spoken of shadows that came and went, of terror that left silence. But these humans stayed. They built. They healed. They laughed. They were no longer ghosts. To them, humans were old ghost stories, until we appeared on the front lines. The morning light on Kalor Prime looked wrong, too bright against the black scars of battle. Smoke still drifted low across the valley. The Vexar had pulled back during the night. Not far, just enough to regroup. Everyone knew another wave would come, bigger, meaner. Captain Stephen Grant stood on the bridge of the cruiser Endurance. Tall man, short gray hair, calm blue eyes that missed nothing. He watched screens that showed the front line in real time. Red dots for Vexar, blue for Concord, small green clusters for human positions. The green dots pushed forward every hour. Status on the east flank, Stephen said. A young officer answered. Holding, sir. Sergeant Cole's team linked with Lieutenant Hayes. They're setting up fallback positions. Stephen nodded once. Good. Tell Major Foster to coordinate the next joint push. We need to take that central ridge before the swarm finishes reforming. Down on the ground, Major Amanda Foster walked the line. She wore the same gray armor as her troops. A scar ran across her left cheek from an old fight. She never talked about it. Right now she spoke into her comm. All units, listen up. Concord forces will move with us on this one. We lead, they follow. No hero stuff. We clear the ridge, then dig in. She stopped next to Lieutenant Brian Hayes. He stood taller than most humans. His shell plates shone a little in the weak sun. Feelers moved slow as he studied her. You trust us to lead? Brian asked. Amanda looked straight at him. You held the line before we got here. Now we hold it together. That's trust enough. Brian clicked his mandibles. It was the Lyrith way of agreement. Then we move when you say. Nearby, Corporal Laura Bennett checked her rifle. Fresh ammo. New power cell. Her shoulders still ached under the bandage, but she ignored it. Sergeant Daniel Cole walked up with a crate of grenades. Special delivery, Daniel said. Concord issue. Thought your people might like familiar gear. Laura took one. Thanks. Feels good to have backup that actually shows up. Daniel grinned. We're full of surprises. The push started at noon. Human squads moved first. They advanced in tight groups, covered each other, used smoke to hide movement. Concord troops followed close behind. Some Lyrath, some avian, a few mammalian, like Maria Lopez. The central ridge rose steep and rocky. Vexar had dug in deep. Trenches, gun nests, biotitans waited at the top. Huge things, legs like tree trunks, mouths full of teeth and acid tubes. Brian marched beside Amanda. His squad stayed near. They reached the base of the ridge. No shots yet. Too quiet. Amanda raised her fist. Everyone stopped. Scouts report 3 titans, she said low. We take them out first. Then the rest falls apart. Brian looked up the slope. How? Amanda pointed to a human team moving left. They carried long tubes on their shoulders. Plasma lances, old tech, still works. The team reached a good spot. They knelt, aimed. Bright blue light built at the tips. Then beams shot out. Hot, straight. One lens hit a titan in the leg. Metal and flesh burned. The creature roared. It turned, charged down the slope. Chaos started. Rifles opened up. Humans and Concord fired together. The titan took hits, kept coming. Its claws tore earth. Acid sprayed in wide arcs. Laura Bennett ran forward. Flank it. Her squad split. She went right. Ryan Patel and 2 others went left. They threw grenades. Explosions under the legs. The titan stumbled. Daniel Cole appeared from the smoke. He carried a heavy launcher. One shot. A missile streaked up. Hit the titan's head. Bright flash. The creature fell sideways. Stopped moving. Cheers came from Concord lines. Short. Surprised. But 2 more titans moved. They crashed through their own smaller troops. Claws raised. Amanda keyed her comm. Endurance, priority strike. 2 biotitans. Coordinates locked. Steven's voice answered calm. Copy. Firing in 10. 10 seconds felt long. The titans closed. One swung at a Concord squad. 2 soldiers went down. Screams. Then the sky answered. Twin beams from orbit. White fire. The titans burned where they stood. Legs melted. Bodies collapsed. Smoke rose thick. The ridge grew quiet again. Vexar's smaller forms hesitated. Amanda waved forward. Push. Humans and Concord charged together. They climbed over rubble, shot anything that moved. Laura reached the top first. She dropped behind a rock, fired bursts. Vexar fell around her. Brian climbed next to her. His rifle hummed. You lead like you were born for this. Laura reloaded. We train for it. Every day. A Vexar jumped from cover. Claws out. Brian shot it midair. It dropped at Laura's feet. Thanks, she said. Don't mention it. They kept moving. The ridge fell piece by piece. Humans used speed. Concord used numbers. Together they cleared nests, destroyed guns, took prisoners when they could. Most Vexar fought to the end. By late afternoon, the ridge belonged to them. Human engineers set up defenses fast. Sandbags, auto turrets, Concord troops helped. They learned quick. Brian sat on a crate, tired. Amanda walked over. She handed him a water pouch. "You fight different," Brian said. "Reckless, but it works." Amanda sat next to him. "Not reckless, calculated risk. We know pain stops us, so we move fast, hit hard, end it quick." Brian looked down the valley. Vexar bodies lay thick. "The stories said you were ghosts. No pain, no end." Amanda stared at the same view. "We feel pain, we bleed, we die, but we don't quit. That's the difference." Daniel joined them. He carried 2 ration packs. "Food, eat, next wave won't wait." Laura came too. Her armor had new scratches. "Swarm is quiet. Too quiet." Amanda nodded. "They're thinking, adapting." Brian felt his feelers twitch. "They fear you now." Daniel opened a ration. "Good. Fear makes mistakes." Night came slow. Stars appeared one by one. Human ships stayed in low orbit. Lights blinked like watchful eyes. In the captured trenches, soldiers from both sides sat close. Stories passed back and forth. Alirath told of old battles. A human shared a song from Earth. Simple words, strong beat. Maria Lopez sat near Ryan Patel. "You really vanished for thousands of years?" Ryan nodded. "Our worlds broke. Big war. We hid, rebuilt, watched from far away." "Why come back?" Maria asked. Ryan looked up. "Because someone still remembers the old promise. When the galaxy calls, we answer." Brian listened. He thought of the ghost stories his own people told. Warnings. Night tales to scare children. Now the ghost sat next to him. Warm, tired, real. A scout ran up. Movement, east side. Big swarm forming. Amanda stood. "Positions. Everyone ready." Steven's voice came over comms. "All ships stand by. Ground teams, hold the ridge. We will support." Brian lifted his rifle. Laura checked her patch. Daniel loaded a fresh clip. The ground shook again. Far off. Growing closer. The swarm came. But this time, the line held strong. Humans stood at the front. Concord stood with them. The old stories no longer felt like warnings. They felt like truth. And the truth was coming for the Vexar. To them, humans were old ghost stories, until we appeared on the front lines. The dawn light came slow over Kalor Prime. It touched the valley in pale gold. Smoke still rose from black craters. Broken Vexar shells lay scattered like dry leaves. The swarm had broken. They fled in disorder. No more waves, no more roars, just silence where screams used to be. Humans walked the field in quiet groups. They helped lift the wounded. They collected tags from the fallen. They moved slow now. No rush. The fight was over. Lieutenant Brian Hayes stood on the ridge they had held so hard. His shell plates were scratched deep. One feeler hung a little crooked from a close hit. He looked down at the landing zone. Human ships sat grounded, ramps open, crates unloaded. Fresh troops stepped out but did not run. They walked. They looked around like they belonged. Major Amanda Foster came up beside him. Her armor showed dents and burns. Short hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. "We did it," she said simple. Brian clicked his mandibles soft. The galaxy did it. Together. Corporal Laura Bennett approached from the other side. She limped a little. A new bandage wrapped her leg. She stopped and looked at the same view. "No more ghosts," she said. Sergeant Daniel Cole joined last. He carried a rifle slung easy over his shoulder. His face looked tired but calm. "Captain Grant wants everyone at the main camp," Daniel said. "Big meeting. Concord leaders coming down." They walked together. The path wound through what used to be the worst fighting. Now it felt different. quiet, peaceful almost. The main camp sat near the Endurance, tents in neat rows, a big open space in the center, tables set up, chairs from ship stores, flags from many worlds hung still in the morning air. Concord banners next to human ones. Red stripes on gray. Captain Stephen Grant stood at the front, tall and steady. He waited until the crowd grew. Humans, Lyrath, avian, mammalian, all mixed, no lines between them anymore. Concord leaders arrived in a small shuttle, 3 of them, an elder Lyrath named General Kor, a sharp-eyed avian called Admiral Lyra, and a human-looking diplomat from a mixed world, Counselor Elias Reed. They stepped out careful, looked around, saw the humans everywhere. General Kor spoke first. His voice carried far. "We come to give thanks. The swarm is broken. Kalor Prime stands free. Many worlds will breathe easier because of this day." He turned to Stephen. "Captain Grant, your people came when we thought all hope gone. You fought beside us. You bled with us. You turned the tide." Stephen stepped forward 1 pace. "We did what any friend would do," he said. "The old signals reached us. We heard the call. We answered." Admiral Lyra clicked her beak once. "The stories we told our young. Ghosts from the dark. Undying ones who left only silence. We thought them warnings, tales to keep order." She looked at Laura, at Daniel, at Amanda. "Now we see the truth. You are not ghosts. You are warriors. Living, breathing, here." Counselor Elias spoke last. His voice shook a little. "For thousands of years we wondered where you went. We searched old records, found pieces, a great war, worlds lost, then nothing. We thought you died out, or hid forever." He paused. "But you waited, you rebuilt, and when the time came, you returned." Brian stepped forward then. He had not planned to speak, but the words came. "I grew up on the stories too," he said. "My people told them at night. Humans were shadows, monsters from before time. We feared them. We used them to scare children into behaving." He looked at Stephen. "Now, I stand here. I fought with you. I saw you bleed red. I saw you laugh after battle. I saw you help the wounded, even when you hurt." He clicked his mandibles again, slow, respectful. "The stories were wrong. Not about your strength, about your heart. You were never monsters. You were the ones who stayed away so the galaxy could heal. But when it needed you most, you came back." Silence fell over the camp. Stephen looked at Brian a long moment. "We never wanted to be ghosts," he said. "We wanted to live normal lives, raise families, build homes. But the stars remember, and when the stars cry out, we listen." He turned to the crowd. "Humans pledge to stay, not as saviors, as allies. Our fleets will guard these borders. Our people will help rebuild. We will stand with the Concord, not above it, beside it." Cheers rose, not loud at first, then stronger. Lyrath mandibles clicked in rhythm. Avian wings beat once. Humans shouted simple words. Laura smiled small. She leaned close to Brian. "Feels strange," she said, "not being a story anymore." Brian nodded. "Better this way." The meeting ended slow. People talked in small groups, shared food, passed water. Stories flowed easier now. No fear in the telling. Later, as the sun climbed higher, Brian walked with Daniel along the edge of camp. "Why did you really come?" Brian asked. "After so long." Daniel looked at the horizon. Ships patrolled high above. "Because we never stopped caring," he said. "We watched from far, saw wars, saw peace, saw the Concord grow. When the Vexar came, we knew, if we stayed away, the stories would end in darkness. We couldn't let that happen." He stopped, looked at Brian, "and because friends don't leave friends to die alone." Brian felt something warm in his chest. Not pain, not fear. Something good. They walked back, quiet. That night the camp stayed lit longer. Fires burned low. Songs drifted on the wind. Human songs mixed with Lyrath hums. Avian calls wove through. Brian sat by one fire. Laura next to him. Daniel and Amanda across. A young Concord soldier approached. A small avian. Wide eyes. "Is it true?" the young one asked. "You will stay?" Amanda answered, "Yes, we stay." The young one smiled. Wings fluttered happy. "Good," it said. "The galaxy feels safer now." The fire popped. Sparks rose to the stars. Brian looked up. Human ships moved slow patrols, their lights steady. No longer strangers in the dark. The old ghost stories would change now. Parents would tell them different. Not to scare, to teach, to remember. Humans were not shadows anymore. They were the light on the front line. They were the ones who answered. And the future opened wide.